Hi, this is Justin Colletti of Sonic Scoop, and welcome back for some more MixCon. And today, we've got a mix masterclass and walkthrough from an amazing producer, engineer, and mixer by the name of catherinemarks. catherinemarks' discography kind of reads like a who's who of cool bands. She has worked with St. Vincent, Localnatives, Foals, thekillers, Interpol, Death Cab for Cutie, Wolf Alice, Alanis Morissette, Natalie Imbruglia, PJ Harvey, with the influential British producer Alan Moulder, and with artists like Blonde Redhead, Coheed and Cambria, Depeche Mode, and so many more. And today, she's going to be walking us through a mix by a band called Manchester Orchestra for a track called Bedhead. This one is beautifully produced. The original rough mix you'll hear sounds pretty good and has a lot of cool stuff going on, but I think Catherine really brings it to life. And for me, I heard in her final mix, the drums come to life so much more and make my body involuntarily move even more. I really heard extra dimension in the vocals, and they became even more interesting and vivid to me. And those are two aspects among many in the mix she's going to show us a lot of her work on: drums, and in particular, the effects on the vocals on this mix are crazy. And we get to really dive under the hood and see exactly what's going on in here. And that brings me to a quick shout out and thanks to our sponsors. All of the MixCon masterclasses are free to the public thanks to our sponsors. And this one is sponsored by Soundtoys. And it's a great fit because Catherine uses Soundtoys plugins all over her mix. On drums, you'll see things like the microshift, the decapitator, the radiator. On vocals, you hear things go really wild with echoboy, the alterboy, and the devilock. A lot of sounds get really transformed in this mix in some really creative ways using plugins like the ones from Soundtoys. If you want to check out Soundtoys plugins, you can try out anything they make for free for 30 days over at soundtoys.com. They make some of my favorite mixing effects out there, and it seems like catherinemarks agrees too. In addition to this masterclass and mix walkthrough, we also have a live Q&A coming up right after this with Catherine herself. If you're here for the live premiere, you can type your questions right into the chat box on your screen, and we'll save the best ones for the live Q&A right after this. We also have a great MixCon gear giveaway going on right now where you can enter to win more than $10,000 worth of free gear with multiple chances to win. So go look for the link to that in the description and in the comments down below, and good luck to you. Last but not least, if you want to make sure that you don't miss the premieres of any more great MixCon masterclasses like this one, go over to mix-con.com. That's mix-con.com, where you can RSVP for all the live premieres and live Q&As coming up. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Big thanks to Soundtoys for making this one free to the public. Big thanks to Manchester Orchestra for letting us take a deep dive under the hood of this track, Bedhead. And big thanks to catherinemarks for doing this with us. All right, Catherine, take it away.
Hi, I'm catherinemarks. I'm a music producer, mixer and engineer, and I'd love to welcome you to my studio in London. Thank you so much for Sonic Scoop for presenting this episode for MixCon 2022. I'm so excited to be doing this. There's a few people I'd like to thank before we get started. Soundtoys for sponsoring this episode. They're awesome and I've been using their plugins for years, but I feel like it's particularly fitting because it's all over this track that I'm going to be talking about. I'd like to thank everyone at Kensington and East Coast Studios for helping me get everything set up and making my studio look great. And finally, of course, I'd like to thank the Manchester Orchestra boys for letting me share a few of our processes with you. So the track that I'm going to be talking about is a track called Bedhead by Manchester Orchestra from their 6th album, The Million Masks of God. It's a really cool track. There's a lot of interesting things going on with this one. I do tend to mix a lot of the albums that I produce, I think mainly because all elements of the process, from pre-production, production and mixing, they all sort of tend to blend into one, and I think we kind of mix and massage as we go along. By the time we get to the mixing process, we don't want it to be a reimagination. We just want an enhancement of what already exists. But to be fair, I think even if I wasn't involved in the production, I would still probably approach mixes that way. I tend to want to be respectful of the blueprint of what already exists. Let's open up my hard drive and just have a look. The Manchester Orchestra boys were heavily involved in the production of this, also heavily involved in the engineering. They are also great engineers themselves. So when I got sent this track, I mean, also I recorded this, so everything's kind of set up the way I want it. But if I get sent something, say that's been exported from Logic, I will immediately label everything and then colour code it. I know so many people, colour coding is really important. It's like cleaning your bedroom before you can, enjoy it. The way I like to arrange my sessions is drums at the top, bass, synth bass, guitars, fun stuff, all the synths, pianos, etc., and then vocals underneath, and then BVs at the end. The way I colour code my sessions is drums are always dark blue, bass is blue, synths I usually do in purple, but the Manchester Orchestra boys do them in this ochre colour. Guitars are green. Fun stuff I tend to do in, let me have a look. In this sort of colour, but they had it in yellow. Pianos are pink, vocals are red. I know that doesn't correspond. And harmonies are kind of in a blue colour, light blue colour. So let me just give you a quick blast of the rough mix.
Deaf notes and talking heads, carrying on your dead, blood on the bed head and volume.
So you sort of get the idea. Now, when I first opened up this session and listened to that rough mix, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to make this better, because it already feels awesome. It sounds killer. It sounds so exciting. There's so many cool things going on. You can hear that sort of crunchy loop in the background. The drums are really big and thick, and when the vocal comes in, it feels really clear. Here is where we ended up.
Talk and let it happen. Now I'm afraid you're alone. Oh my God. Let me relinquish and start to distinguish my past.
You can sort of hear, just compared to the rough mix, or the rough mix just feels very flat to me, sort of like this, whereas I think listening to the finished mix, it feels like a sort of more complete picture. This is this loop that I was talking to you about. I was talking to Rob last night about what we did. I can't remember whether I did this in mixing or whether this was one of the first things we did after recording, which was, this is the initial sound of the loop. I just added this other loop with a high pass. And I think that was to help, because I still wanted the warmth, because you can hear this EQ'd loop. Doesn't sound as cool. And I think the reason we did that was so that you could hear the crunchy elements of the loop around also the live drum kit. So let's just have a look at what's going on in the drums. The whole song is really built around this loop. It's the loop, drums, so kick, snare, really, and vocals for me. I remember when we added, so the drums were great. The guitar was really cool. I'll play you the guitar in a second. And obviously the metering of the vocals and the lyrics was really cool. It was when we started adding the bass that we found it really tricky. And I'll play you that in a second. So without the loop, this is what the drums are doing. Okay, so that's it. So Tim had V-drum triggers on his actual kit, which I think I ended up putting samples on the snare because it wasn't, I think the levels weren't consistent. When I put samples in, I used to use programs like Battery to put samples in and manipulate it in that. I stopped doing that because I kind of wanted to treat the samples as part of the kit. I guess it's a visual thing. So this is the kick, the V-drum kick and snare. And that's his sort of hat pattern, I guess, that goes through it. It's quite a heavy kick. And this is the live, with the live kick. I rarely listen to anything in solo when I'm starting the mix. Everything, again, I'm just looking at it as a whole picture. I think I might have like quickly checked the kick and the snare and then looked at the vocals and sort of got that balance good and then kind of quickly balanced everything in around it, but not much and not a lot happened, I don't think. It's funny because to me, the kick is actually quite dense, as is the snare. It takes up so much room. We love a big meaty snare. We love like the low mids kind of being boosted, but so the snare actually feels very tall. So let's hear it with the loop. Okay, so for me, I think what I've done is the loop sort of sits behind the mix in a way, but it takes up a lot of space. And then you've got the kick and the snare, which don't fight with the loop because there's a lot of lows and low mids information going on. I've just used Wave's SSL channel. Yeah, so about 1.5, a little bit of between 3 and 4, taking away about 270. And again, I don't think I'm really conscious of what it is that I'm fiddling with. It's how I'm hearing it in the mix. That's what I'll be doing. And it's not until like the next day or, you know, when we've had a little break that I'll start kind of finessing and investigating what it was that I've done. So let's just have a quick look at the live snare. It's just getting the attack. I don't want you to listen to it in solo. And then with the bottom snare. It's tight and dry. I dig it. And then with the V-drum. See, I've added a doubler on this. So I think I sort of wanted to get a sense of width to that so that you heard like the tall, sparkly aspects of the snare, while the live snare kind of was the punchy thing in the centre. Let me just try this because I'm curious. This is a plugin I use all the time now. Soundtoys, obviously. I want to hear what that does instead. Does it do the same thing? It does, and it does it better. I've put all of my drums out of a kit sub, so they're all coming out of bus 13 and 14. Obviously, at some point, I had subbed the kick out of 9 and 10, including the V drum kick, and put it through a bus to be able to have a control over the kick as a whole. And again, I'm sort of doing, it looks like I've pretty much used the presets and maybe just fiddled with it. And at some point I decided that I didn't like the sound of the kick out or the sub. And I put the kick back out of the overall kit bus. The snare, so the snare top, bottom and V drum snare, you can see I've sent to a separate bus as well. And on that bus, compressing it a little bit, got a little bit of EQ, boosting some of the low mids. It looks like I've automated this at some point. At the end, right, you will get to that. And another little bit of EQ just rolling off the bottom and adding a tiny little bit of 4.5. And then there's other things that I would have tried and not liked, but kept the plugins there just in bypass so that I could always kind of reference them. And then I've put the samples I've just duplicated that bus, bypassed all the plugins and just sent the samples through that. What I sometimes do as well when I'm recording drums is if the vocalist isn't singing, I'll keep the vocal mic open because there'll be like a different kind of compression on that just to see what happens and see what it sounds like. Because I also process that vocal and I send that vocal to a reverb and a delay. This is normally for when they're singing, and it's sort of interesting to see what comes out of that. I'll just show you what that is. It's kind of cool. I kind of love. I mean, it does sound like it's going through a big hall, but it's kind of cool blended in with the rest of the drums. Let's have a listen. Just to add, I think it adds a bit of space. I'll show you which pedals that I used for that actually. It's a bit dusty, but I tend to use this Echo Sex delay pedal, and then it goes through this Holy Grail reverb pedal. Right, let's have a listen to what the vocal mic sounds like as well. Oh, that's cool. I've gated that. Let's see what the gate sounds like off. So that's picking up the V drum, which was playing through a PA in the room. That's kind of cool, but I've gated that to kind of, so everything sort of feels a bit tighter. That's the stair mic. I love that mic. Again, just giving everything kind of a bit of more of a sense of space. They're not very loud in the mix, but it's just that tiny little bit of detail. That's crazy. When I'm recording drums, I'll set up a load of microphones and not necessarily use all of them, and not necessarily stereo pairs either. I will literally, depending on what kind of groove they're playing, I will run around the room and see where it sounds good and just place microphones there just to give some kind of variation. I'm pretty lazy. I don't like to EQ stuff a lot or add reverbs to stuff. So I kind of want my source sound to be rocking. I hate mixing toms. Let's see what these sound like. You can see that I've put them out of bus 3 and 4 as well. So that means I kind of think I'm using them as room mics or overhead mics. Give the overheads a bit of height, I think. That's the cool stuff I've done on this. This distortion pedal. I think I must have sent a mic or had a mic somewhere over the kit and ran it through a distortion pedal and then back into Pro Tools. We've got microshift on the mono overhead as well. I dig that. Let's have a listen to the drums in the chorus. Pretty similar. Let's have a look if there's any rides, and I'll play it with the loop. Just a little bump in the chorus. So what I've also done is I've got one sub, which is just the whole kit going through it. Of course, I've got decapitator on it. And then I will duplicate that to do exactly what the comment says there, which is adding excitement. And again, I've got another cool little soundtoys plug, which is the little radiator. This is the drums without the adding excitement sub. It's very low level. It's just tickling the top end. A little bit like my fat busted summing mixer. Actually, I do want to talk about my mix bus settings, because it is, again, one of the first things that I do. So I run it through my fat busted summing mixer, then through an Obsidian compressor, massive passive, and then the back rack is the last EQ to go on. I rarely change the settings, especially on my massive passive, because you have to blow on that and suddenly it sounds wildly different. So I tend to keep that pretty much the same settings all the time. So I will mix into that. On the Fat Busted, you've got this great top lift and bass lift around 10K and 50 Hertz. And I've got boosting a lot of 10K on this and just a hint of 50 Hertz. On the back rack, I'm boosting 50 again, which is probably too much. About 2 dB of 3K and about 2 dB of 15K. And on the massive passive, I'm looking at around 47 Hertz, ducking a little bit out of 270 Hertz, tiny little bit of 4K, and a tiny little bit of 27K, which is sort of the air, it's the super high frequencies. I love my Obsidian compressor. It's so fun to play with, and often that's the thing that I will kind of go back and forth with. I kind of tend to keep the ratio attack and release the same. I might, at the moment it's on 30 milliseconds, I might swap between 10 and on the release it's at 0.1. I might make that 0.3 depending on what kind of pump I want, and then I'll mess with the threshold and the makeup gain. And that is kind of, as I said, that's kind of one of the first things that I do. Yeah, so I've got everything running through the kit so that it feels, I'm compressing that together. Again, just tickling it. And then at the end, I've got this Abbey Road Studios TG plugin, decapitator, which I love. What are we doing to the EQ? God, it's quite severe. I will go in and I will do these kind of big, wild moves, or what I think kind of quite wild moves, not really knowing what it is that I'm doing. And then I kind of look back and go, what was I thinking? But it worked. So you can see that there's a lot going on with the drums. I think I've added a lot of plugins on this part of the mix. And you get to the guitars, and I guess not much happens. I haven't even subbed these out because we recorded them the way we wanted them to sound. I think these EQs we would have put them on just after tracking. I don't think that doesn't look like something I would have done. You can see here that says fat sick riff, and then we've added a thinner sick riff. So those are all the riff guitars. I wanted to just jump back to the drums for a second. I wanted to play another interesting part of the drums, which is the second half of the song. which is when the hats come in. So I'm just playing just a bit before the bridge. I'll put everything in.
Let me extinguish the habit, the sequence, the loss in my mind. Now I believe in the right by the entrance you broke. Finally reality's taking its hold. You're not who you were, but you can't let it go. You're not where you're from, but you're always alone. So I stick a flag in the ground.
Such a great, awesome moment of the song. So I've done all this to the drums, and then I would have jumped on down to the vocals. And let's have a look at what I've done to the vocals. They sent me, this is their main vocal track, and they had all these plugins on it, which meant that there was nothing else that I could do. So I've obviously bounced it down. So let's have a listen to...
Arguing with the dead. I'm not alone, but it sure feels like someone left.
Now, it's pretty noisy, but I don't care about that. What I tend to do is rather than put a de-esser on a track, I will manually draw out the S's and the breaths. And I work very collaboratively with the artists that I work with, and especially with Manchester Orchestra. I kind of lean on them to tell me if anything is standing out too much. And his ears are very sensitive to that. So I will kind of do a first pass of that. And if he wants me to do it more or take them off, I will. You can see I've written that so that I can hear this word.
It feels like someone left.
So you can hear the t in the left. Also, what I tend to do in the initial stage of the mix is I'll have like a bunch of vocal processing effects, reverbs that I'll import from another session, and they all look like this. There's a lot going on. So I think we would have started with this bright reverb, Vox vocal delay, which is echoboy, and a room, and they would have existed from when we were recording. And then I've added a vocal delay, which is quarter note delay with quite a lot of feedback on the space echo setting, which I really love. It's sort of a bit darker. A vocal spin, which is again quarter note feedback, a bit louder with this mod delay on it. And I think it just sort of, so it swims around a bit. Another vocal spin, similar but with reverb on it. And I also sidechain it off, whether it's the kick or the click. Let's have a look which one I'm doing. Yeah, I'm sending it from the click so that the reverb sort of pumps in time with the track. And I'll show you later on in the track. And then I have a swell reverb, which is not sidechained. It's just, it kind of adds volume and sort of I'll show you in a second what that does. And then I've got another swell reverb, which is sidechained off the click. So there's also, which is really cool, this other double, which I'm not doing a lot to.
Arguing with the dead. I'm not alone, but
Not a lot's happening on that. Lead vocal, I'm setting it to the sort of basic reverbs and delays that I use. And, a little smidge of these other vocal spins. Let's have a look if I've done any rides. Yeah, so I have. So in the first verse, not a lot going on.
arguing with the dead.
And in the chorus, I pump it up.
God, let me relinquish and start to distinguish my past in my time.
So there's a lot of delays and reverbs kind of swimming around, which I love. And then I've boosted up, what's this one? It's this vocal spin, the first vocal spin.
Mind, who now I believe in the cause.
And you can actually hear as the reverb decays, a little bit of the click coming through. Then we get to the second verse, and We did some really cool stuff in production on this one. And this is a lot to do with Ethan Grusker, who's also a producer on the record, where he added, I'll just play it to you. It starts off
Falling against your skin.
So you can hear the kind of low octave, and I'll just open up this. Again, I've had to bounce down this second verse and second chorus vocal because there's a lot of plugins going on. So he added this little alterboy soundtoys plugin on and pitched it down an octave.
Clutching my neck, said it's all supposed to end like this. You and I are panoramic.
So I'm using a lot more reverbs and delays on that. Let's have a look at how much. Yeah, they're all kind of set to one particular level. Just tickling it, not. I mean, it's still swimming around.
Falling against your skin.
Let's have a listen to it in the track.
Falling against your skin. Clutching my neck, said it's all supposed to end like this. You and I are panoramic.
That you and I panoramic is so cool.
You and I are panoramic.
That sounds so badass. What have I done there? Oh, it's happening in the double as well, I think.
You and I are panoramic.
Yeah, so we like enhanced that low octave there using his double. Again, using Little Alterboy, the radiator plugin, Devil Lock, Decapitator, and Microshift as well. So good. I don't know what I would do without Soundtoys. Then we get to just before the bridge. Let's listen to all the vocals in solo.
Let me extinguish the habit, the sequence, the loss in my mind. Now I believe in the cure.
So what I've done here is I've automated that down because I've created a big swell on that lyric ghost and bounced it down, which sounds like this. And I would have done that because I'm sending a load of other things to it and I only wanted it to happen on that one. Andy, the Manchester Orchestra boys are always great because they always put loads of BVs and harmonies and we get to have a lot of fun with what's going on with those.
Falling against your skin. Clutching my neck, said it's all supposed to end like this.
It's so cool. Like just these kind of little vocal textures that just make it so massive.
Clutching my neck, said it's all supposed to end like this. Clutching my neck, said it's all supposed to end like this. You and I are panoramic. Now I'm afraid of the ghost. Oh my God. Let me relinquish and start to distinguish my past and my time. There is only love and fire, so oh my God.
So beautiful, and I always have so much fun working on their tracks just because of all the cool shit that they do on the vocals. So let's have a listen to it going into the bridge because there's some counter melodies going on, I think.
Now I believe in the right by the entrance you broke. Finally reality's taking its hold. You're not who you were, but you can't let it.
Actually, on this track there is, and it's just that ghost kind of crossing over. I kind of wanted it to sit back, but also that word ghost to feel really big while not interfering with lyrically with what was going on in the bridge. Now, this is the fun part. At the tail end of the song,
Ghost. The ghost.
That's my favourite one. That would have been Andy saying, you know, let it rip. Let's have a look what I did. Here's this one. Sort of swells up, side chaining. That's dry. Then I would have done this. You can see that guy, that vocal spin pumping. So much fun kind of working on this track. Right, so often the de-essing is kind of the last thing I did, but I think on this, because the vocals were already sitting really well, that was one of the first things that I did. Then, as I said before, I had a look at the guitars. Let's have a listen to all the guitars. Everything is doing the riff at that point. We have these high-end distortion thing, which is basically just cranking up the DI of the guitar through a mic pre and then running it through another pre to give it more gain and then compressing it. And this is what it sounds like. Just really thin, beautiful top-end distortion. Let's have a listen to what's going on in the verses.
I'm not alone, but a shift music someone left. Death notes and talking heads. Killing on your dead.
One of my other favourite parts of this track is when this comes in. Ethan was playing the tack piano when we went to Atlanta to kind of do some overdubbing. I love this guy, this kind of cross rhythm. Actually using H delay for that, I think just for a little bit of darkness. I love that when that comes in.
Killing on your dead. Blood on the bedhead and volumes you left unsaid. Let 'em talk and let it happen. Now I'm afraid you're alone.
I remember one of the previous mixes that I'd done of this, I think it was the Ref 3, which is the one where we left it before we had a break. I think I remember I'd mixed that sort of a little bit louder. Let's have a listen.
Killing on your dead. Blood on the bedhead and volumes you left unsaid. Let 'em talk and let it happen.
Just a smidge louder, and I think someone would have told me to turn it down. I really dig that one. So then you get to the chorus.
Now I'm afraid you're alone. Oh my God. Let me relinquish and start to distinguish my past and my time.
You've got a lot of rhythms going on. You've got the V drum, little kind of percussive thing, which is doing this in the chorus. You've got the loop. You've got all the drums. Let's play the chorus again. And then you have this, which was like beautiful guitar, which I think was one of the original parts that he had written. And we used the acoustic guitar to kind of just enhance that. Again, I didn't do a lot to that. It was recorded so beautifully. That's so interesting. It's funny how that I've mixed that actually, because it's quite woofy with the sub bass as well, I'm sure. And that's just adding kind of like supreme low end. What have I done to that? I've sidechained the bass off the kick, not the click, but very barely. And not doing much to the EQ either, just taking out a little bit of 900. Actually, I'm doing quite a lot. But I would normally put like a bunch of plugins on the bass. I think, again, just because of the way I would have mixed this, having everything in, there's some things that I might not have paid attention to. It looks like I didn't pay much attention to the bass, but I think it just all felt right. So one of the things that I said that I would show you is the earlier versions and of the track and how it progressed. So I will give you a quick blast of Andy's original voice memo. I love that guitar. So that was sort of the original idea. Obviously, that's not how the song ended up starting, but this is the guitar and where it ended up in the chorus. Love it so much. So beautiful. As I said earlier, a lot of the track was built around that kind of rhythm of the guitar. This is when the band started developing it up. They worked on this at in a cabin in Asheville in North Carolina. So you can sort of hear the loop is starting to be a fundamental part of the track. But it's using that guitar rhythm as the guideline. So he's still working on lyrics there. And then at some point throughout the process, this looks like I did a tester mix in November, which was when I had come back from recording the album. And I was so excited about the track, I just wanted to have a go. I wanted to get the ball rolling. I don't think it's the final vocal. So the vocals are a lot wetter, and I must have been playing with vocal reverbs at that point, reverbs and delays at that point. Again, just like super excited about kind of getting stuck into it. So we were talking about the vocals earlier, and then I wanted to kind of run a bit of the track as it ended up, and then just solo of kind of a few elements. So let's have a listen to the track where it ended up.
And talking heads, killing on your dead, blood on the bedhead and volumes you left unsaid. So let them talk and let it happen. you're alone. Oh my God. Let me relinquish and start to distinguish my past and my time. You and I are holding fire, so oh my God. Let me extinguish.
Actually, I wonder if there was more stuff doing that, because there's some cool synths going on here. Let's see what they were doing. Yeah.
And start to distinguish my past and my time. You and I are holding fire, so oh my God. Let me extinguish the habit, the sequence, the loss in my mind. Now I believe in the cause.
Let's check out that cool little delay swoop. I think it says oops delay, and I think that was a happy accident in the session, in the recording process. It's fun.
Falling against your skin, clutching my neck, said it's all supposed to end like this.
There's my favourite piano again.
Panoramic. Now I'm afraid of the ghost. Oh my God. Let me relinquish and start to distinguish my past and my time. There is only love and fire, so oh my God. Let me extinguish the habit, the sequence, the loss in my mind. Now I believe in the right by the entrance you broke. Finally reality's taking its hold. You're not
Cool Prophet.
let it go. You're not where you're from, but you're always alone. So I stick a flag in the ground. I think I know who I'm living for now. I am what you see above.
Insane.
It's not what I want, but I'm figuring it out. Oh my God. Let me relinquish and start to distinguish my past and my time. You and I are holy fire, so the habit, the sequence, the loss in my mind. Now I believe in the
Let's just listen to that bit again. That is my favourite vocal spin or vocal throw that I've ever done.
He was teasing around the town and cried, "Wolf, wolf!" Everybody came to help us, but there was no wolf.
Often on a lot of the Manchester Orchestra tracks, they'll feature their kids just chatting, and then we'll make something really cool out of it. What did we put on this guy? This is Andy's daughter, Maisie.
He was teasing around the town and cried, "Wolf, wolf!"
Again, I can tell this is Ethan's handiwork. Rob and myself are kind of purists when we record stuff. So we kind of want it to sound how we want it to tape, so to speak. But Ethan kind of opened our eyes a little bit and kind of unshackled us in the way that we would record something and he'd quickly hop on the computer and just put like a load of plugins on it and it would sound cool And we'd be like, oh my God, this is such it's brand new information to us. So it was quite exciting because I'd worked on their previous record where everything was a lot more pure and recorded to tape how we wanted it to. And this sort of took it to another level. One thing I should also probably mention is at the early stages of the mix, when I'm setting up the outputs from Tools through to my Sony mixer, I run it back in through Tools and I have a track which has nothing on it, and then I send that again to something with just a limiter on it. And I'll start by monitoring this one without the limiter, and then I'll start mixing into the limiter. And for me, it's fairly transparent. It's just adding a little bit of gain. And it also means that I can crank the 192s a little bit. But let's see if there's any difference between that intro. I can hear just a little bit more excitement in the top end on those elements. See if there was any difference with mix 1. Again, not really. I mean, yeah, so there was very little change to me from the overnight. I think there was 6 mixes between the first draft and the end, and everything you can tell is kind of incremental because there's not massive drastic changes. It would have been tiny little detail things like vocal levels of synths. This is also another cool synth. Just levels of that, treatments of that, EQs, just gently kind of massaging it all into place. Sometimes when, I'll start a mix, they'll go, oh my God, I can't wait to hear it. And I say, me too, because I have no idea what I'm going to do to it. That initial kind of sitting down at the computer or sitting down at my easel, so to speak, and just painting. Free, just getting like the rough image of what I want it to look like straight away. And then, like you can see, we then spent 4 or 5 days making changes that I now can't hear. But I know that it is better because also, I've been A-Bing kind of little sections, which it's sort of hard to hear the difference. But I think it's also about like listening to the track from top to bottom, which I also often do. I'll just be making changes, but always listening from the start of the song to the end of the song because it's also about the journey and the experience of the track, not just how does the verse sound, how does the chorus sound. It's experiencing the song as a whole because that's how people listen to it. Anyway, that was super fun for me to kind of get under the hood of that track, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found some of the things that I said interesting. Thank you again for Sonic Scoop and Mixcon for having me.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that Mixcon Masterclass as much as I did. A lot of great insights from Catherine. Really great to see such a creative person at work, really fearlessly going in there and making changes based on feel, unafraid to try things and push things too far, even if she has to reel them back in later. Just an absolutely cool way of working, and I really did love to hear this track transform, particularly in the drums and vocals. I heard some of the biggest differences between the original rough mix and the final mix, which just drew me in even more, made me move my body involuntarily even more, and made me really more interested in the storyline and narrative arc of the vocals. So great work there from Catherine and from Manchester Orchestra. Big thanks to Soundtoys, again, for helping make this one free to the public. We saw a lot of Soundtoys effects all over this. There was the Devil Lock, the Radiator, a ton of Alterboy doing some cool pitch shifting, a ton of Echoboy, really too many to count. If you want to check out anything that Soundtoys makes for free, you can over at soundtoys.com, where you can try out all their plugins for 30 days. Some of my favorite creative mixing effects out there, and it seems that Catherine would agree as well. We are about to have a live Q&A come up with Catherine right now. If you're here for the live premiere and you've entered questions in the chat box, we'll save those questions for the live Q&A. And yes, if you're joining us in the future, the live Q&A and a replay of this are still available. But if you want to make sure you don't miss any more live premieres or live Q&As when they happen, go over to mix-con.com. That's mix-con.com, where you can sign up and RSVP so you're notified exactly when these live Q&As and live premieres are happening in advance. While you're at it, also take a quick second to sign up for the mixcon mega giveaway, because we are giving away more than $10,000 worth of free gear, and you've got multiple chances to win. So look for the link to that in the description and the show notes down below. Big thanks again to Soundtoys for helping make this one free to the public. Big thanks to Manchester Orchestra for allowing us to go under the hood of this track, Bedhead. And big thanks to Catherine for doing this with us. I hope you join me and Catherine in the live Q&A coming up right now. This has been Justin Colletti of Sonic Scoop. Thanks for hanging out with me. Hope to see you there.